Listen, Trump train.
Donald Trump is putting the party back in politics. I'm Carrie Kellerman, and it's time for Cari On. Watching anyone with talent perform at peak ability is inspirational, and we are watching a natural leader in Donald Trump, who not only casts a vision of where he's headed, but he's able to convince millions to follow him. Donald Trump's ability to convince, communicate, and influence is truly remarkable. So what exactly is he doing, and why does it work so well? Let's break it down, because if it works for him, it can work for us too.
But here's the story. So look, here's the story. So here's the story, folks.
Here's the story is a phrase Donald Trump uses almost every time he speaks, because he knows that stories are one of the best ways of getting around a common obstacle in the art of persuasion, people's working models or paradigms. Think about a card game that you know how to play. Did you learn to play that game by reading about it, or by just playing it with friends a few times until you caught on? You probably created a working model for the card game simply by playing it. We create all kinds of models as we go through life without even knowing it, through our personal experiences. A model, or the pictures in our minds, is the way we make sense of how things work, kind of like how a box top makes sense of the puzzle pieces inside. And we are pretty loyal to the models we create. If some new incoming data doesn't fit our model, we tend to reject the data before we will throw out or change our model. For example, have you ever been talking about a subject like politics with someone with whom you disagree, and no matter how much data you give them, they just won't budge an inch? It's probably because they are choosing their model of how government works over your data, which doesn't match. That can lead to big problems. So, is there a solution?
But here's the story. So look, here's the story. So here's the story, folks.
Fortunately, there is. Since we can't create a model from personal experience on everything, we often rely on the personal experiences of others. That's why stories, eyewitness accounts, anecdotes, testimonies, and even fables, if well told, can replace an old model and create a new one in the mind of the listener. Stories have a unique way of getting past our mental defenses and going straight to our hearts. During his campaign, Donald Trump has been using both his own stories as well as the stories of others to replace some faulty models in the political dialogue, including on topics such as immigration, his own character, and government effectiveness. Let's look at immigration first. The working model of immigration that many politicians want you to adopt sounds like this.
Someone who comes to our country because they couldn't come legally. They come to our country because their families, a dad who loved their children was worried that their children didn't have food on the table. And they wanted to make sure their family was intact. And they crossed the border because they had no other means to work to be able to provide for their family. Yes, they broke the law, but it's not a felony. It's kind of it's an act of love. It's an act of commitment to your family.
So, illegal immigrants are just loving dads coming across our border? Listen to the story of this dad at Donald Trump's rally in Beaumont, Texas.
My name is Dan Govach. I'm the father of Spencer Govach. This is my son. He was 25 years old. January 31st this year, he was sitting at a red light in the neighborhood that I grew up in. An illegal alien from Mexico that had been deported 4 times, had a rap sheet that included felonies, assaults, and burglaries, and had been in our federal prison system for 5.5 years. Pulled up to a red light, randomly picked my son out, blew his brains out, went on and shot 4 more people.
That father's moving story creates a far different working model of illegal immigration than this.
But it shouldn't rile people up that people are actually coming to this country to provide for their families.
You can almost feel that paradigm shift. Now, let's listen to Hillary Clinton's faulty model of Donald Trump's character.
So whether it's immigrants that he's insulted, Muslims, people with disabilities, POWs, women, federal judges, the list keeps growing longer.
Now let's listen to Lynn Patton combat Hillary Clinton's model with a story. Her story.
As a black female executive at the Trump Organization, I can no longer remain silent about the repeated and reprehensible attempts to align my boss and his family with racist hate-mongering groups, campaigns, and messaging. The Trump family that I know is, without question, one of the most generous, compassionate, and philanthropic families I've ever had the privilege of knowing and the honor to call friends. They have been incredibly loyal to me and to the countless dedicated people they employ around the world, hiring more minority and female executives than any other company for which I've ever worked. To equate racism with my boss's call for a temporary moratorium on a flawed immigration system that radical Islamic terrorists continue to exploit, or the construction of an impassable wall to protect our borders from the influx of illegal drugs, is not only incendiary, it's wholly irresponsible and only serves to embolden the very hatred these draconian groups espouse. What common-sense American wants another terrorist attack on our soil, or to perpetuate this country's rampant drug epidemic? Like many Americans, I have struggled with substance abuse and addiction. The Trump family has stood by me through immensely difficult times without hesitation or concern for their own reputation by association. They continue to trust me with every aspect of their lives and the lives of their families. They invite me into their homes and welcome me at their family gatherings. This is the Trump family that I know.
This personal testimony, this eyewitness account, goes a long way to creating a new model of Donald Trump and his family. Finally, let's look at the faulty model of government as the solution to all of our country's problems. Almost every politician will try to convince us that they are the pros. Just stand back and we'll handle it. But one of the best stories that creates an entirely different model of government competence is about Donald Trump himself.
In the ongoing saga of how to waste tax dollars, the Wallman Ice Rink in New York's Central Park rates a special chapter, right up there with those $1,000 coffee pots the Pentagon once bought. The rink was finally reopened today.
We can't wait to get on the ice.
No argument from the grown-ups on that. The city had spent the last 7.5 years and $12 million on an exotic plan to remodel the rink. The whole project was finally abandoned last spring when the new cooling contraption wouldn't make enough ice to chill a six-pack. In desperation, the city turned the project over to this man, flamboyant real estate tycoon Donald Trump. Trump said he was so tired of looking at the mess the city had made, he agreed to take the job for no profit. He not only finished it under budget, he finished it in 3.5 months.
I really wanted to prove a point. The cities, New York City in particular, but the cities are so wealthy, if we could only save the money that we're wasting.
The debacle illustrates what can happen at all levels of government when red tape and bidding regulations designed to protect taxpayers sometimes work against them.
When the people bid, we wouldn't take the best designer and contractor who does ice rinks. We would take the one who says that he can do it at the lowest bid, and he may be the very worst.
At any rate, a chastened Koch promised reform and announced new plans for Donald Trump.
I am now renting him out to other cities.
And if they don't take him, there's always that office that buys coffee pots for the Pentagon. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York.
And in the public versus private debate, the Wallman Ice Rink story creates a new model that private solutions are smarter, quicker, and less costly than government solutions.
But here's the story. So look, here's the story. Here's the story, folks.
So during this election season, try changing someone's faulty model with a story, maybe even your own. Stories are so effective and so memorable that who I think was the greatest teacher who ever lived used them all the time. Today, we call his stories parables. Make America fun again, my friends. And until next time, carry on.
Come join our party, baby. Start a Trump train. A Trump train.